get there. Would it not be more prudent to put realistic targets so that we can actually meet and or exceed these targets?
So through the chair, again, that's why we had identified individual specific actions, which is essentially our economic development to-do list for that 5-year period. I think based on the discussion at GIC, I've had a few conversations with Mr. Norton about that, and I think as we do future annual reports, we'll try to identify each of those actions as well, so you would know how many of the individual actions the department had delivered on. Because I think that also tells an important story, because you're right, we are putting in front of you here some very bold long-term targets. And that was done for a very good reason. It was done to make sure we had those ambitious targets in front of us. But you're quite right. I think as we come forward with future annual reports, we'll also be able to indicate year by year the work plan and what the actions were achieved within each individual year.
Through the chair, I understand that. My question, however, is should we not have realistic targets so that we can gauge whether or not we are reaching our targets rather than falling back constantly on the assumption that it is simply an ambitious target, and if we don't get there, well, we're doing our best, and we've asked for the moon, and we're delivering what we can. I think it might be more prudent to have a realistic objective so we can see whether we're meeting them. Through the chair.
So through the chair, I can certainly take that back. I think we did think it was important to have big, bold goals in front of us. What we didn't want to do was to set goals that we knew would be easy to reach, just to say we had reached them. We wanted to take a step which we've seen others do as well, which is to set very big stretch goals. But certainly, as we look back at how we do future annual reporting, I'll take that back and see if there's sort of a way we can look at in terms of are we showing growth, are we showing increases, which are also important goals, certainly in the shorter term.
Thank you for that, and I would appreciate that. And my one question I have, though, on the vacancy rate to 7%, have we made a dent at all through the chair in our vacancy rate in the downtown core?
Through the chair, we have. If you look over the sort of the 5-year trend, I'm going from memory, but I believe that about 4 or 5 years ago we were sitting in the range of 19%, and we're now hovering in the range of 15%. So we are seeing it moving in the right direction. Where we chose the 7% was that is in our view a healthy vacancy factor. That's a vacancy rate at which we would anticipate we'd start to get some new build coming into the core. So we are showing we're trending generally in the right direction, but certainly have a ways to go.
Thank you. Through the chair, you said 15%. It says here 13.82.
Through the chair, even better. I was trying to go from memory there.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one time I'm going to disagree with Councillor Scully. I am so pleased, and I see it refreshing that we're setting stretch goals, because it's amazing when you set stretch goals how often you could meet them. If you set mediocre goals, you're going to get mediocre results. And so I like putting stretch targets out, but if you don't hit them, don't beat the staff up for trying to get there. But when they're looking at these numbers and they want to try to, impress is probably the wrong word, but, bring back that they're achieving them, it gives them a great deal of satisfaction. So I'd like to see us put more stretch targets in place to make sure that we stretch our employees out to get beyond mediocrity and get into great outstanding numbers. Thank you.
The Mayor to take the chair. I think the council that just spoke is being consistent, because I was looking for stretch goals on our budget. That would be a zero target. So clearly I believe in stretch goals. Doesn't mean you're always going to attain it, but it means that you're reaching and doing the best and sharpening your pencil to get there. So I understand that argument, but I got a couple of questions and some comments. So my understanding is the tax incremental plan is only for currently in place for the downtowns in the various communities. Is that correct? Through the chair.
Jason?
Through the chair, in terms of the tax deferral grants, yes, those are part of the community improvement plans which apply to the downtowns.
So the incremental tax program is what I'm talking about.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
So we have identified Upper James, and I did take Glen, and we did look at, especially the west side, how under optimized it is in regards to employment lands, residential, commercial, a lot of vacant land, a lot of opportunity to increase tax assessment, employment, and residential in our community. And yet, there hasn't been any focus from this council or this by our staff and extending the program because we don't have a downtown. Basically, that is our corridor on the mountain. And so I'm wondering is there any consideration, has there been any discussion about extending this program? Because I know I can tell you right now there's a number of inquiries in regards to Upper James as we speak. I've sat in a number of meetings. The question is, can we extend this program to Upper James corridor?
Jason?
So through the chair, some of the programs are available because in the last update to the community improvement plan last year, the boundaries were expanded in the Upper James area to include some additional properties, and so some of the programs are now available to those properties. Certainly we can have discussion in terms of whether or not there are additional programs that are needed in the Upper James area, but I think that was one of the discussions that came up when the CIP was brought before council last year to be amended, that those boundaries did expand in the Upper James area for the reasons that the councillor suggests.
And that's why I took Glenn for a ride, just to show him the merit and the justification for extending that program. But more specifically, I don't believe this particular program, and I did ask this question at GIC, is an opportunity for potential development along that corridor. So I would only ask that if staff can have some discussion. I'm not going to move a motion now. I just think that should be generated by staff, understanding there's an opportunity. I don't think we all have to do everything by motions. I hope you can see the merit and understand what is taking place in the transition, the amount of excitement, not just in the lower city, but certainly in that corridor right now. So you'll know that through the applications you're probably receiving. The other comment I was going to ask is, or actually provide context, because I did have an opportunity on behalf of the mayor to go to the Lumco-Marco meeting on Friday. And it was interesting to learn, because there was an extensive study done, I believe, might be the CEO from York on behalf of Lumco. And they're looking at what has transpired in Ontario, specifically the GTHA area, in respect to growth targets, employment targets. And what they found is that there's a number of communities, and we were just on that cusp in regards to growth, and there's other communities that are having faster growth. But very few of those communities met employment targets, including Hamilton. And they're doing a further analysis, but it appears that Toronto actually well exceeded their employment targets. And so it appears that there's been a shift in regards to when you look at places to grow and they identify opportunity for employment lands and population growth, there's an anomaly here, and that is that the employment and office space and those kinds of things are actually taking off and continue to take off in Toronto, and it hasn't been captured by the communities around. So when we're setting these stretch targets, for example, I hope that we understand, and I know we work with Lumco because they're doing further analysis, but they're trying to understand what kind of policies need to be in place to ensure that all the communities around the GTHA also benefit from employment lands and meeting employment targets, and what are the barriers in the way, and then what kind of incentives perhaps we need to lobby the province on to ensure that more of our communities are going to hit those employment targets. And why that's important, by the way, and this is the other part of the presentation, is because when we do places to grow, we put a certain level of infrastructure to meet those targets. If those targets aren't met, you've already put money into the ground and you're not recouping development charges. And if you're not recouping development charges, I think in New York they calculated that it could be a $200 million impact. So there is a financial impact if we're not meeting these targets, and it's important for us to work in collaboration with those communities around us, the province of Ontario, to ensure that we understand what is happening and how it could be addressed and fixed, because it will put additional financial burden on communities like Hamilton. So I want to highlight that, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll take the chair back.
Okay, I have no further speakers.
Oh, Councillor Scully, second time.
Thank you. Through the chair, my question is, in the following new major economic development assets, Appendix A, the 800 to 1,200 seat multi-use performance center, is that the Ancaster Arts Performance Center?
Through the chair, no, it's not any specific venue at this point. What was identified through the economic development plan was that we have a missing rung on our venue ladder of a venue of about that size, which would support our music industry. So that was identified as a goal in the plan, is that we want to be able to identify venues of all sizes. And so that was what we put as one of our stretch goals, was to have a venue identified.
I'm sorry, so through the chair, the status of that is?
So through the chair, we indicated that one as on target, simply because we do have a couple of inquiries of potential opportunities to meet that one. Don't have anything to sort of announce or say is firm in hand yet, but it's one that we're feeling good about in terms of some potential opportunities that are out there.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. So those are all the questions. All those in favor? Carried. Any opposed? Carried. Item 6. Sorry, that was 5. Oh, yeah, 5 is missing. Sorry, Madam Clerk, I do not have a 5 on my report, so I go straight from 4 to 6. Okay, so 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Mr. Mayor, you have an amendment for item 11.
So this is actually a replacement motion, so I think I will move to withdraw this one, and then in motions later on we'll present a similar motion but a changed one that reflects the current direction.
So the motion, Madam Clerk, would be to table this particular item or remove it?
No, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the motion is to delete item number 11 and renumber, because the recommendation will come under motions. Okay. Because it amends a previous.
So motion to delete 11, moved by the Mayor, second by Councillor Connolly. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, Mayor. So now we have 12.
Carried.
13. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. Just want to go on the record again saying that I am opposed to any further expenditures and or pursuit of the ward boundary reform at the OMB.
Sorry, are we on the ONA, lodging, bargaining? We're on 13. So 13 is carried. Any opposed? No, 14 is. 13 is the ONA Lodges bargaining ratification. Oh, we renumbered it, right? Madam Clerk, I'm just going by the roadmap, and I have 12 being the Dundas McCoys, I have 13 being the ONA Lodging bargaining ratification, and I have 14 appeal of ward boundary bylaw. Okay. So we did approve 12, Madam Clerk. Okay, so we're on 13, and sorry for that, and thank you for your patience, but my book is different in regards to the numbers. So appeal of ward boundary bylaw, all those in favor? Councillor Green opposed.
Sorry.
And Councillor Eden Johnson.
Thank you.
Opposed. Thank you. Carried. Now we have, I'm sure at this point we have Mr. Eisberger, Mayor Eisberger, may I please have a motion to approve the report as amended and receive the information section?
It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Partridge, that the 10th report of the General Issues Committee be adopted as amended and the information section received.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. The Audit and Finance Administration Committee presents report 17007 and respectfully recommends 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Councillor Skelly, may I please have a motion to approve the report and present and receive the information section?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Terry Whitehead, that the 7th report of the Audit, Finance and Administration Committee be adopted as presented and the information section received.
All those in favor? Any opposed? carried. The Emergency and Community Services Committee presents Report 17004 and respectfully recommends 1. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, item 1 and 2 about our fabulous 2 long-term care facilities, a Macassa Lodge and Wentworth Lodge that Councillor Vanderbeek and I proudly represent, but I know all of Council is very proud of. Item 1 is about the accreditation survey results that I don't know about any member of Council, but I never got 100% in school ever. There were about 10 different categories that fell under the Commission's accreditation review and final report card. And under about 10 different categories, leadership and many others that we saw and heard at committee, it showed that we got 100% for our 2 lodges. Under item 1, Mr. Deputy Mayor, it just goes to show the great work that the multitude of our staff from management down to the front line do for the 2 lodges, Macassa and Wentworth. And if I could just quickly, Mr. Deputy Mayor, with your permission, segue into 2, which is the satisfaction survey by the residents. It showed about a 95% satisfaction rate by residents and their families. It shows that they refer and recommend both of our 2 long-term care facilities to many, many friends and associates and family members to put their loved ones in Macassa and Wentworth Lodge as a place of residence in their golden and twilight years. And I just want to give a shout out to Acting General Manager Vicki Woodcox and the administrator at Macassa and Wentworth, Sean Gadsby, for all the great work they do. Anytime you get a referral rating and a satisfaction rating of 95%, you're doing exceedingly well. Thanks for allowing me to say and speak to both items, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I'm not surprised by your comments, Councillor. You've been a champion for those particular lodges, so thank you for your comments. All those in favour, 1. Carried. Any opposed? Carried. 2. Carried. 3. Carried. Councillor Johnson has an amendment on item 4.
That's correct. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And colleagues, my proposed amendment was circulated by email earlier this week and is in front of you now in paper form on amber paper. And I'll read out, it's seconded incidentally, Mr. Deputy Mayor, by Councillor Green, this amendment. So I'll read out what the amendment is and I'll speak to what it's all about, if I may do it that way. So I'll just read it out. That item 4B of the Emergency and Community Services Report 17-004, respecting the I Am Committed poster campaign on HSR bus shelters, our item 9.1 on the ECS agenda of Monday, be amended to read as follows. And I'll read out the part that's remaining. A, that staff be directed to work with Hamilton Community Legal Clinic's Indigenous Outreach Coordinator to investigate the possibility of installing posters in HSR bus shelters as part of the I Am Committed poster campaign. And here's the amendment at B, that the funding in the amount of $12,250 from the account 55401-560325, a public works account, for the installation of the I Am Committed posters in 5 different designs in 52 HSR bus shelters beginning May 15th, be approved. That is the amendment, as I say, seconded by Councillor Green. And colleagues, just to speak to this, for those who were not at our ECS meeting on Monday, the I Am Committed campaign, the relevant commitment is a commitment to the truth and reconciliation process. And we had a really excellent delegation at ECS on Monday from Hugh Tai, the lawyer who's the director of Hamilton Community Legal Clinic, speaking to what the project is, what it's all about. We had a really good conversation on Monday, and we voted for the motion that is item 4 on our ECS agenda tonight, but we didn't have the finance piece all figured out. And I'd like to thank Joanne Pryal and Dan McKinnon, as well as our friends at the Legal Clinic, for figuring out the logistics to do with this. I'm very pleased to move this amendment, and I thank you all for your consideration and support. I'm looking forward to seeing the posters up. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, and thank you to Councillor Johnson, Councillor Green, for both your leadership on this file. Councillor Green.
I'm happy with it as is.
Okay, no other speakers. All those in favour? Carried. Any opposed? Carried. Councillor Johnson, I believe you have a motion.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is seconded by Councillor Farr, that the 4th report of Emergency Community Services Committee be adopted as amended and the info section received.
All those in favour?
Carried.
Any opposed? Carried. Well, believe it or not, it's 5:55, and I will be taking my seat. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Farr, could you sign on that paper?
Thank you for that heartwarming reading of the reports, Councillor. Councillor Skelly, a motion to move in the Committee of the Whole
Councillor Green, could you
to
sign
rise
that?
and report. Actually.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Terry Whitehead, that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Carried. I have motions. First motion is Councillor Jackson regarding the Hamilton Hornets.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Ward 7 Councillor Donna Skelly. Hamilton Hornets post-game and practice social events, special occasion permit. Mr. Mayor, there's 19 dates here that are listed for public consumption in terms of the dates they need for the tournaments they're holding and having a special occasion permit liquor license. And I'll just conclude it by saying whereas the City of Hamilton does not have an objection to the liquor license serving time extension for the following establishment, which is located, of course, at the clubhouse at Mohawk Sports Park. Therefore be it resolved, City of Hamilton hereby deems the Hamilton Hornets post-game and social events being held here as municipally significant for those 19 dates, and the following applicant be provided a copy of this resolution for inclusion to the Alcohol, Gaming and Commission, Hamilton Hornets Rugby Football Club, care of the President, Tom Edwards, who I've worked very closely with, him and his executive, and they've been not only good recreational partners in the community, but they've also been very good coexisting partners within the residential community of the East Mountain. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Skelly.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Vanderbeek, a motion regarding the Real McCoys.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Marula. The Dundas Real McCoys Senior Hockey AAA Hockey Club receive an ice fee waiver. The Real McCoys play regularly in the Dundas Jail Greatmire Arena, which is currently about to go under significant renovations, and it will affect their ability to sell advertising on the boards, which they will not be able to do when they relocate to Harry Howell, where other people have the opportunity to sell the advertising on those boards. And so in light of the fact that it's for our project and we're moving them to Harry Howell to help offset their advertising and gate revenues, I am putting a motion forward to ask that their ice time be waived for the 2017 and 18 hockey season to compensate for that financial loss. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to say that I did appreciate having the item referred to this evening so that we could deal with it at council, because it did give me the opportunity to talk to my user groups at Harry Howell Arena and also to touch base with the Real McCoys and staff. So my user groups have now been consulted. They have absolutely no issues with sharing the ice time. We've been able to negotiate the schedule. As I say, it was done very tightly within a few days between last week and this week, but I appreciated the opportunity to be able to do that, and so there are no issues, and I'm very pleased to support this. In fact, I would have really liked to second it since they're coming to Harry Howell, but that's okay. I just wanted to say that I have talked to the Real McCoys, and I'm going to be promoting them heavily through my e-news. We're going to ensure that our community is well aware of their schedule, and we want to see Harry Howell full so that the McCoys will be able to benefit entirely from that. So, we're very, very pleased, and we will welcome them with open arms to my community. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, moved by Councillor Vanderbeek, seconded by Councillor Marula, thirded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Farr, do you wish to present any motion respecting the authority enact radial separation bylaw?
Yeah, and I just wanted, for purposes of organization here, Mr. Mayor, and I was away. I want to thank a number of staff for helping me out here. Originally, I had sent prior to leaving an email that had 1, 2, 3 whereases and a simple therefore be it resolved, and it shows up in our agenda here today. And then when I arrived, there was this goldenrod copy that I'm not interested in moving, actually. I wanted to be specific to radial separation. And I thought, it could be I was far away and email didn't work out the way I wanted it to. But this was very, very helpful, but a little more thorough than what it was I was interested in tackling now as it relates to marijuana dispensaries now and as we await regulation by the province. So if I could ask through you, you have it. Thank you. I had the wrong copy here. Thank you. Okay, so just to be clear, everyone has the copy. It says authority to enact a radio separation bylaw. There's 3 whereases and only 1 therefore be it resolved. That's what we're looking at? Perfect. And I would like to move this, Mr. Mayor, and appreciate Nicole in legal, Jay Thorne, who just discussed this with me as it relates again specifically to radio separation, as I've had a few issues in certain areas of the Ward 2 specifically, and have been in dialogue with one quite closely as I sit on the board of directors in that particular BIA. We had a meeting this morning. We talked about, they had a copy of this. They know that it's coming forward. And specifically, the issue, Mr. Mayor, is a number of these, they're all illegal right now. You all know that. These are marijuana dispensaries. The Prime Minister himself has said that they are illegal right now. While the legislation is pending, the regulation is a product of the province that's not in place. And once the regulation is in place, we'll see if any or all of these shops that are currently illegal and operating illegally, and it is a police matter to shut them down at this point, if they can remain. So between now and then, I want to do what we did with payday loans, and that's what this motion is about. As we await the regulation from the province, the federal government has deemed the province the regulator, each province, of this nationwide new marijuana legislation and how it will be dispensed and where and how often and when, and all of those answers are forthcoming. As we await all that, work now staff from Planning and Economic Development on doing the research and undertaking the necessary draft policy measures that will ensure that in the event some or all of these illegal shops that are operating now and some in clusters, and that's what I'm trying to get at with this motion here tonight, on a radio separation bylaw that can be immediately implemented because we did all the work in advance. To have that radio separation bylaw at the ready the day the regulation comes into play for this and all the other Ontario municipalities once the province enacts the way they're going to regulate. And it's something staff has already done with payday loans. It's something I hope to do specific to the over-concentration that we're already seeing in downtown Hamilton in certain areas, and how we can address that by hitting the ground running the moment the regulation comes into play. That's what's before us today. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Marula. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brenda Johnson? Yes, I'm sorry. Can I get Brenda in and after you? My apologies.
I'm good to let Councillor Green, the seconder, go first.
Yep, Councillor Johnson, go ahead, and then we'll get Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. And just to give everyone an update, this is also an issue out in the rural areas, folks. This is just not focusing on any particular part of this city. Up in Upper Stony Creek, we've got horrendous issues right now. I'm glad to say that this is the first weekend, probably since Easter, that we have not had guns involved. And the police report that it's all been cleaned out and property standards went in with our good friend Mr. Ken Leanders to get the building building permits and non-compliance and property standards, and the police have been involved, probably about 6 different divisions. So I still would like to see something a little bit more fulsome, and Ken's working on, you're going to see another motion coming forward soon, and it's going to be just involving the entire city, because it's just as frustrating for our staff as it is for the police, as it is for the residents. And as I said before, you couldn't even drive down the road with the windows down and not have this obnoxious smell fill up the car and take about 3 kilometers away before that smell would leave your house or your car. I can't imagine sitting outside with your kids or trying to enjoy your backyard. So thankfully that this might be a happy ending, but we're still working with the police department, and we're going to be bringing another motion coming through again, just to keep tweezing this out so that hopefully every neighborhood in this city can live beside some of these and not feel the pain and the negative impact from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you. I just want to go on the record and say I have never in my life engaged in illicit drug use, ever. Never even had so much as a drink of alcohol. But looking at this particular $15 billion industry that's emerging, I've been on the record now 2 or 3 times. Back in September, I think of last year at the Board of Public Health, I opposed our Board of Public Health recommendations on legalization based on the terms that they had, restricting it to pharmacies and other places, supporting small businesses and dispensaries. I did it again with our BIA subcommittee as the liaison there. Been very vocal on the record talking about my support of providing small business access to this massive market. I'm going to do it again tonight. But the comments that I made at the BIA subcommittee as it relates to this motion were the following: that I believe that dispensaries for medical and recreational use of marijuana ought to be governed by sound planning principles. So whether it's radial separations within BIAs or keeping them out of the vicinities of schools or places where children are, so as not to entice or advertise to young generations of kids. I support the distribution of marijuana at the dispensary level. So I want to go on the record to say that again tonight. I find it ironic that we have a Prime Minister who is admitted to using marijuana while as a Member of Parliament. At some point in time, he had to buy that marijuana from somewhere, unless people are just giving it to him, which is a whole other ethics question. And yet here we are in this murky gray area criminalizing people for a murky gray area of law. And so I'd love for the federal government to come through, whether it's through the province or whomever, with very clear regulations on what is going to be, in my opinion, the eventual complete legalization, both recreational and for medical marijuana. So every time this topic comes up, I will continue to say the same thing. I'll be supporting this because I believe the caveat is it has to be under sound planning principles. And so that's always been my caveat with anybody who's out there. It's not for me personally, but I do believe the market is going to be a huge potential both for urban folks who may have been criminalized in the past for this, as well as some of our rural partners who are going to be involved potentially in the agricultural side of this massive, massive industry. So those are my comments, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the frustration of the BIAs in terms of this being unregulated in a murky gray area of law, in terms of the government going in one direction and then saying something else. So I'm looking forward to that clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. And on this motion, am I to understand radial separation across the city? Or are you talking just a specific area? I thought I heard it was a citywide.
Citywide, on that specific issue of radial separation.
Thank you. All right, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Carried. Any opposed? Thank you. Councillor Collins, you have a motion on the Residential Municipal Relief Assistance Program.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and it's a notice of motion, and I would like to bump it up as a motion in light of the time sensitivity attached. So it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Marula, that the rules of order be waived to allow it to be introduced as a motion.
Thank you. Notice to waive the rules. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Collins.
Yeah, and this motion mirrors essentially those that we've seen before with past instances with basement flooding and storms that have hit the city. And of course, I wanted to take this opportunity with this motion in front of us, Mr. Mayor, to thank first and foremost the Beach Community Council. Scott Howley and Jim Hallett have been terrific over the last couple of weeks in terms of dealing with some very trying circumstances on the beach. And of course, our city staff, public works staff, have been tremendous in terms of responding to issues, not just on Beach Boulevard, but on the side streets. And for many beach residents who've lived there for a number of years, they've seen this kind of activity in the past. It's been quite some time, many decades, I think, since we've seen lake levels as high as they are. But for new residents from Toronto and elsewhere, it's been a little bit of an eye-opener. And so I know that there's a little bit of education involved, and certainly I think the media reports in the newspaper and online recently have certainly helped with that education process. So with that being said, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Marula.
Thank you. Councillor Marula on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank Councillor Collins for the motion. That type of initiative was born back in 2004, I believe, in Ward 4, where the entire initiative was born. That coupled with the backflow preventer, not to mention the class action lawsuit I was going to present as well. But having said that, since that time, we've come a long way. I really have to commend staff on this front. These two recent storms, not to make light of it, but there was a time when we'd have anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 households, not people, but households impacted from those types of storms, and with literally raw sewage in their basement. And I'm happy to say that the tens of millions of dollars that we have spent has led to an incredible success, where that I believe we have 2 or 3 events in the area but we haven't even determined if it's related to their own private section versus the public section. And many of you will remember how drastic and how devastating that sewer flooding issue is. I know, frankly, back in those days, and I still have a pager, but I was entirely reliant on the pager back in those days, where that the moment that rain would fall, I would count to 7, 1001, 1002, and the pager would start going off. And I'd have to buckle down and take in those calls, which were literally thousands. We, at one point, even council allowed me permission to hire more people just to deal with the intake of those calls. So the fact that we're sitting here today in an area that is one of the oldest areas in the city, and it's been renewed to the level that it has been, aside from my being very mouthy to get a lot of these things done, it would be remiss of me not to thank all of those councils since that time, as well as staff who've been just champions throughout this process. And I thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you. You still have a pager?
I do.
Really? Oh, okay.
In case somebody wants to.
I thought they were long gone. I didn't know they were still around. All right, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And certainly I want to thank Councillor Collins again for bringing this forward and always keeping abreast of the issues and concerns. I just wanted to ask, though, that when you mentioned the relief program, it's similar to the programs we've had in the past. And what is the amount that will be the cap? Do we have that through you to staff, Mr. Mayor? Because it's not mentioned here. I'm just not sure if we should be mentioning the amount.
Okay, thank you. We're going to turn that over to staff. Dan McKinn, if you have a number, or Brian.
To you, Mr. Mayor. It's generally managed through finance. I believe it was $1,000, but I'd want to confirm that.
I believe that's what was mentioned initially when this was discussed. So I just want to be sure for the record and for the viewing public. It's $1,000, and there's no liability on behalf of the city if they pursue that claim and are paid that. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Mr. Mayor, I support was before. After I got elected in 2005, we had the major floods in the Fessenden neighborhood where the only way they could get around was by canoe. And they have negative driveways, so they had 8 feet of water in their basements, not 1 foot or 2 feet. And they lost their cars, so there was significant losses that were experienced through that period of time. And it was the third flood they received or had experienced because it started in the early 80s after the link was built. I remember working with staff. We created a surge committee, an independent group of experts with climate change, with stormwater management, and so forth. And they came forward with recommendations. And I know that it's unfortunate we're here today still having to do this thing, but it is necessary. It does show compassion, and we don't have a magic wand to fix all circumstances. But I do want to announce to my colleagues, with all the rain that we received, traditionally I would be in the Fessenden neighborhood, the phones would be ringing off the hook. We put $5 million into that neighborhood. We put a storage tank that takes hundreds and thousands and millions of liters under Green Cedar. We put a double pipe system in along Forest Gate. We put a pond in at Sir Alan McNabb's school. And I can tell you the phone calls I received after this litany of rain, a plethora of rain that we received in the last week or so, because people are on pins and needles, they were expecting to be in the same situation in regards to asking for grants once again. Their anxiety was high, but their experience was very positive. So that is a tribute to our commitment to our community, and especially those acute chronic areas of flooding. The programs like the Compassionate Grant helps bridge those gaps on the interim. But the expertise, the forward thinking, and the professionalism that our staff provided in moving forward to look for these solutions as quick as practical have worked, and I want to thank them as well. So I certainly support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderbeek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Collins for bringing this forward, because it extends the motion that we passed at the last council meeting from just April the 20th event until to cover this past weekend up to the 6th of May. and that's important to all kinds of areas in the city. But I wanted to take the opportunity to thank, in particular, the public works staff who worked really hard to not only deal with the flooding, but in Dundas in particular, and I'm assuming there's some other areas of the city that were flooded on the 19th or 20th. I think it was the 20th of April. They also worked to try and give people a sense of security when we knew there was some significant rainfall coming during this last weekend. And so they distributed sandbags, they cleared out things, they really worked hard, and they went way beyond the call of duty in some cases. So I want to recognize them and just thank them and thank Public Works generally for everything they've done to try and look at what they can do, at least in Dundas, because that's where I'm dealing with some significant problems that we have because we're a lake bed, basically, and everything that comes off the escarpment comes down to us in that end of the city. So my sincere thanks, and of course I'll be supporting this, and thanks again to Councillor Collins for bringing it forward.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to all of our good staff for dealing with all of the issues across our city. In fact, just about everywhere they were mobilized. So a lot of preparation work happens before the storm even hits, and I think that's where we're seeing some really positive benefits of not seeing the kind of flooding we've had in the past. So we have a motion moved by Collins, seconded by Marula. All in favor? Any other comments or none? Hearing none. Thank you, Councillor Skelly. Ask to waive the rules regarding the Hamilton Greek Fest.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Terry Whitehead that the rules of order be waived for the introduction of a motion respecting Hamilton Greek Fest.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Skelly.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Terry Whitehead. It's before you, the whereas. Therefore, it be resolved that the City of Hamilton hereby deems the Hamilton Greek Fest being held in the City of Hamilton, Ontario, on August 18th, 19th, and 20th, 2017, as municipally significant, and that the following applicant be provided a copy of this resolution for